and welcome to Star Wars Obsessed. I just watched a documentary and it's called I Am Your Father. The documentary is about David Prowse, and David Prowse is the man who played Darth Vader. And basically, what the documentary discusses is why wasn't his face shown when Darth Vader's face was revealed at the end of Return of the Jedi. It documents David Prowse's early days before Star Wars, and then it goes on and it talks about the time that he's doing Star Wars and speculates why he wasn't allowed to show his face as Anakin Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. So the documentarian goes to meet David Prowse and talks to David Prowse about why he thinks that he wasn't allowed to be the face of Darth Vader, or should I say Anakin Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. And David Prowse speculates that it's possible that it's because in the early days he may have revealed some information and the studios didn't like that. And one thing that he revealed was when he was being interviewed between Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. At the time, David Prowse did not know that there was going to be a sequel to Star Wars. And he was being interviewed, and the interviewer asked him about, if there was a possibility, if there was going to be a sequel, what would you like to see? And David Prowse said, I think it would be interesting if Darth Vader happens to be Luke Skywalker's father. And so that the studios didn't like that, especially when they did make The Empire Strikes Back, and it reveals, that Darth Vader is Luke's father. So there's that question that's lingering as to whether or not the idea of Darth Vader being Luke's father was actually George Lucas's idea or David Prowse, like who had it first. So there's that lingering question since the interview came out, months before The Empire Strikes Back came out. So that was really fascinating. So unfortunately, because of that, and the studios were really upset about him saying stuff, talking like that he had this label put on him that he talks to the press and he reveals stuff. So when it came to Return of the Jedi, they didn't want David Prowse to do a lot of the scenes. They kept having this stunt double doing all kinds of scenes that David Prowse could do, and David Prowse couldn't understand. So he kept asking, well, why are you letting the stunt double do it? Why don't you let me do it? And they wouldn't give him any explanation. And even that scene where Darth Vader lifts the Emperor and throws him over, they were going to have somebody else do it. And then David Prowse says, well, I can do it. I can lift him. So they let him do it. They were originally, it's amazing. They were actually going to have somebody else do that. But David Prowse did it. He lifted it and lifted the Emperor and threw him over in one take. So that amazing scene, it was done in one take. And he actually lifted the guy. That was pretty awesome. But the scene where Anakin is revealed when Luke Skywalker takes the helmet off is obviously not David Prowse. It's Sebastian Shaw. And when they were filming that scene, they had guards all around, and they didn't tell David Prowse that this was happening, so he had no idea. And to make sure that he doesn't go in and interrupt and see this, they had all the guards all around, and so just in case he wanted to go in, they would block him. And apparently, David Prowse did not know about this reveal until he actually saw the finished film. And the reason they give for them not allowing David Prowse to be the face of Anakin Skywalker was there was an interview in the Daily Mail, I believe that's a British newspaper, that says that David Prowse was the one who revealed that Darth Vader gets killed at the end. And, apparently there was, the people with the production of Return of the Jedi didn't want any secrets to take it out. And George Lucas had the newspaper and confronted David Prowse with it. And David Prowse basically said, no, I never said this stuff, even though the people quoted him in the newspaper. And then they interview the guy who was working with the Daily Mail in this documentary. They interviewed him, and he said that it never happened, that David Prowse never said this thing. And it was all a misunderstanding. And what is really sad is that George Lucas refused to believe David Prowse just because of what happened with The Empire Strikes Back. It is so pathetic of George Lucas that it's unfortunately tainted David Prowse's image, that he's not being invited to the Star Wars celebrations, and he hasn't been invited to Star Wars celebrations. And they say that George Lucas and Lucasfilm Limited and all that stuff or Disney has nothing to do with Star Wars celebrations. Well, if that's the case, then why isn't he being invited to the Star Wars celebration? It makes no sense. It's just something very fishy about that. So it was really sad, and it makes me dislike George Lucas even more. So what the filmmaker did with he asked for permission to film the final scene in Return of the Jedi where Luke takes off the helmet, and he was going to have David Prowse be behind the helmet, behind the mask. And Lucasfilm Limited would not give them permission to show it in the documentary. So we don't even get to see it. That's a really disappointing part. We don't even get to see the reenactment of that scene from Return of the Jedi with David Prowse. They filmed it, they did the makeup and everything, and the only people who got to see it was at some kind of private screening, and they got to see it, but we will not officially get to see this scene with David Prowse because of George Lucas and Lucasfilm Limited. They refused to let it be seen. Now, hopefully, somebody will sneak it on YouTube and we can see it there. But it's really sad. Fortunately, you can see David Prowse at conventions, sci-fi conventions and all stuff like that. He'll be there. They love him there. It's a really good documentary. It's called I Am Your Father. I highly recommend it. Check it out. Thanks for watching Star Wars Obsessed. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and please subscribe.